Free sample and gifts. Samples which are supplied free of cost without any consideration do not qualify as supply under GST. Except where activity fall within the ambit of Schedule 1. So there is no GST. Free samples, no GST on free samples, not qualify as supply. Buy one get one free. One item is being supplied to free of cost without any consideration. In fact, it is not an individual supply of free goods, but a case of two or more individual supplies where a single price is being charged. It can be best treated as supplying two goods for the price of one. Taxability of such supply will depend upon whether the supply is of composite supply or mixed supply, and the rate of tax will be determined accordingly. Transactions involving supply of goods by any person other than individual to its member. Bring into certainty that transactions are covered within the scope of supply under GST to ensure person other than individual and its member. Activity or transaction between a person other than individual and its member or constitute for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration are covered within the ambit of supply. Activity of transaction involving supply of goods or services. Any transfer of title in good, supply of goods. Transfer of right in goods, undivided shares, supply of service. Any transfer of title in good under the agreement which stipulate that property in good shall pass at a future date upon the payment of full consideration, supply of good. Any lease, tenancy, supply of service. Any lease or letting out of the building, including commercial, industrial, complex of business, commercial, supply of service. Any treatment or process which is supplied to a person, to another person, supply of service. Good forming part of a business assets transferred or disposed of by or under the direction of person carrying on the business so as no longer to form part of those assets. Supply of good. Goods held under the business are put to the private use or made available to any person. Supply of service under the direction of the person carrying the business. Goods forming part of the assets of any business carried on by a person who chooses to be a taxable person shall be deemed to be supplied by him in the course of furtherance of business. Supply of good. Business is transferred as a going concern to another person. Business is carried out person representing. Renting of immovable property. Renting of commercial. Supply of service. Construction of complex building. Supply of service. Construction of complex buildings, civil structure or a part thereof, including a complex or building intended to sell to a buyer wholly or partly, except where the entire consideration has been received after the issuance of completion of service, whether the requirement by the competent authority. मतलब यहाँ पे ये हो गया कंस्ट्रक्शन का कोई भी काम हो रहा है और उसका इंटेंशन ये है कि इसको बनाने के बाद बेचना है, तो वो हमारा सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस हो जाएगा. लेकिन अगर कंस्ट्रक्शन मतलब कंप्लीट होने से पहले उसको पैसे पूरे मिल गए हैं, सर्टिफिकेट इशू करने, तो वो सप्लाई ऑफ गुड हो जाएगा, सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस. Rathi Building has constructed individual residential unit for aggregate consideration of 1.2 crore per unit. 19 lakh per unit was received before issuance of completion of certificate by competent authority, and it is in its first occupation, and the balance after completion. The term construction includes supply of service. Temporary transfer permitting the use of enjoyment of intellectual supply of service. Development, designing, programming, customization, adaptation, upgradation, incarnation, supply of service. Agreeing to obligation to different an act or to tolerate an act. Supply of service. Security deposit for forfeited in event or cancellation of tour package by customer. Supply of service. Transfer of right to use goods for any person, purpose, whether or not for a specified cause. Work contract. Supply of service means contract for building, construction, fabrication, completion, iteration, modification, innovation, alteration of any movable property. Good. Supply by way of or as a part of any service or in any tenancy right. Pagadi system. The tenant pay periodic rent to the landlord as long as he occupy the property. The tenant also usually has the option to sell the tenancy right, say property. Landlord pay tenant the prevailing. It has been clarified that the activity of transfer of tenancy rights against consideration is squarely covered under the supply of service liable to GST. Transfer of tenancy rights against consideration, that is tenancy premium, is squarely covered under GST. Stamp duty and registration charge has been levied on such transfer of tenancy right. It shall be still subject to GST. The transfer of tenancy right cannot be treated as sale of land. To sum up, the activity of transfer of tenancy right is squarely covered under the scope of supply and tax. Transfer of tenancy right to a new tenant against consideration in the form of tenancy premium is taxable. However, renting of residential dwelling for use as a residence to an unregistered person is exempt. Non-supplies in the GST. Activity or transaction which shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor supply of services. Service by an employee to employee in the course or in relation to employment. Only services that are provided by employee to employee in the course or employment or outside the realm of supply. However, service provided outside the ambit of employment for consideration qualifies supply. Service by any tribunal, court, establishment under any law for the time being in force. Function performed by Parliament, Member of Parliament, State Legislature, Member of Panchayat, Member of outside the realm of GST. Duty performed by any person who holds the post of pursuant provision of Constitution in that. Duty performed by any person as a chairperson or a member or director in a body, establishment by central government, state government, local authority. Services of funeral, burial, cremation or mortuary including transportation of deceased. Sale of land and subject. Sale of building, entire consideration for the sale of building received. Issuance of completion of certificates or after its first occupation, whichever is earlier. Sale of land and subject to sale of building, that is in case where the entire consideration for the sale of building received after issuance of certificate. सर्टिफिकेशन के बाद अगर पैसे पूरे मिल रहे हैं तो वो जिस पे GST नहीं लगेगा. Actionable claim other than specified claim. एक्शनेबल क्लेम पे जीएसटी नहीं लगता है, लेकिन स्पेसिफाइड एक्शनेबल क्लेम है तो उस पर जीएसटी लगेगा. Include actionable claim other than a specified claim. Only specified actionable claim are treated as supply. All other actionable claim are outside the ambit of definition of supply. A specified actionable claim means actionable claims involve betting, gambling, casino, horse, lottery or online money gaming. Betting, casino, gambling, horse racing, lottery or online money gaming. Specified actionable claim means actionable claims involved in or by way of betting, casino, gambling, horse racing, lottery or online money gaming. Means online players or pay deposit money or money worth. Non-supply notified. The government is empowered to notify activity transactions in the state government local authority. It is neither supply of good nor supply of service. In relation to panchayat municipal function. Till now, following activity has been notified in this clause. Neither treated as supply nor supply of service. Grant of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Service by grant of alcoholic liquor license by state government are treated as neither supply of good nor supply of services. Such license grant consideration in the form license is called supply of service by grant liquor. It is not applicable. Interstate movement of various mode of conveyance. Interstate movement of various mode of conveyance between distinct person including train, buses, trucks. Interstate मतलब दो स्टेट में जा रहे हैं. वेरियस मोड ऑफ कन्वेंस बिटवीन डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन मतलब अपने एक ही पेन पे रजिस्टर्ड है बिटवीन स्टेट्स और उसमें बहुत सारे मूवमेंट हो रहा है. ये क्या है? नॉन सप्लाईज क्लैरिफाइड बाय CBIC. ठीक है. तो इंटरस्टेट मूवमेंट ऑफ वेरियस मोड ऑफ कन्वेंस between distinct persons including train, buses, trucks, tankers, trailer, vessels, container, aircraft, carrying goods or passenger or both, or for repair and maintenance, except in case where such movement is for further supply of the same conveyance. मतलब दूसरे डिस्टेंट प्लेस पे जाके वहाँ से उसको बेचेंगे तब GST लगेगा. अगर हम पैसेंजर को अपने वहाँ पहुँचा रहे हैं या फिर गुड्स को पहुँचा रहे हैं या फिर रिपेयर पर्पज से जा रहे हैं तो उस पर GST नहीं लगेगा. Neither treated as supply of good nor supply of services and therefore not to be liable for IGST. However, applicable suggested the case may be shall be liable on repair and maintenance done on such conveyance. अगर रिपेयर मेंटेनेंस के लिए उस वहाँ जा रहा है उस पर मेंटेनेंस हुआ रिपेयर हुआ तो उस पर GST लगेगा. Interstate movement of rigs, tools and spare and all goods on wheels. Interstate movement of goods except in case where the movement of such good is for further supply of the same good. Such interstate movement shall be treated neither state supply of good nor supply of services. In context, it is retreated that applicable suggested the case may be liable to repair and maintenance done on for such goods. Supply leviable to GST. Supply must be made by a taxable person. Supply must be a taxable supply. Taxable person. A supply attracting GST can be made to a non-taxable person also. The restriction of being taxable person is only on the supplier, whereas recipient can either be taxable or non-taxable. For supply to attract GST, the supply must be taxable. Taxable supply has been broadly defined and means any supply of goods or services which is liable to tax under GST law. The supply of goods or services or both which attract nil rate of tax or which is wholly exempt. Exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which attract nil rate of tax or which may be wholly exempt from tax. Composite and mixed supply. GST is payable on goods or services or both at notified rate. Classification of any supply is essential to determine the applicable rate of GST on particular supply. The application of rate poses no problem if the supply is of individual goods or individual services. In order to determine whether supply or composite supply or mixed supply, one need to determine whether the supply is naturally bundled or not naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. The concept of naturally bundled eliminates the definition of composite supply. Composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient and comprises two or more taxable supply of goods or services or both or a combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supply in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. This means that in a composite supply, goods and services both are bundled owing to natural necessity. The elements in the composite supply are dependent on the principal supply. The predominant element of composite supply. Work contract and restaurant services are classic example of composite supply. But the GST law identify both supply of service, both as supply of service, work contract and restaurant service, and chargeable to a specific rate of tax. However, in respect of other composite supply, the need to determine supply as a composite one, which arises as a determined to appropriate classification of supply of goods. Necessary to determine as whether a particular supply is naturally bundled in ordinary course of business or what constitutes principal supply in the composite supply. How to determine whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business. Composite supply comprises two or more supplies, one of which the principal supply shall be treated as supply of such principal supply. Accordingly, the entire value of composite supply shall be classified under the category of main supply and shall be taxed as a GST rate. Printing industry.